The very first thing I do after crossing into another world is sell off my noble title to buy 50 slaves. Everyone thinks I've lost my mind. Highland barbarians are notorious for their ferocity and wild, untamable nature. Unless you beat them into submission with your fists, the barbarian way, they will never fall in line. That only makes me more excited, because I have awakened the Lord Ascension system. A system that lets every fighter I recruit keep leveling up, and lets me buy them powerful weapons and gear straight from the system shop. The stronger these Highland barbarians are, the better they suit my plans. I am the illegitimate son of Calvin, head of the legendary Orlando family. Just moments ago, the city lord delivered some bad news. Calvin, the man who was my father in name, passed away last week. The title of Marquis will pass to my half-brother, Wenger Orlando. As the only threat standing between Wenger and the family inheritance, I've naturally become a thorn in his side. So Wenger wants me to voluntarily give up the Orlando name. As compensation, he's willing to pay 500 gold coins and let me go carve out my own territory. A noble name carries prestige, but no real power. There's no point making an enemy of a ruling marquis over an empty title. Still, I'm going to squeeze every last drop of benefit out of this deal. I lean back in my chair and say with great sorrow, Orlando is a name passed down through more than 10 generations of ancestors. It is the most precious thing my father ever left me. Giving it up? Absolutely impossible, unless of course you raise the price. The city lord is so stunned by my shamelessness that he can't say a single word for a long moment. After a long round of haggling, the city lord agrees to lend me an additional 1,000 gold coins, interest-free, on the condition that I spend it here in his city. My first move with this startup fund, head to the Grand Arena and buy some Highland barbarian slaves. Soon I arrive at the Grand Arena, led there by one of the city lord's men. The arena owner, hearing that I want Highland barbarians, kindly warns me, these brutes are savage to the bone. When they're hungry, they'll tear apart a crocodile with their bare hands and eat it raw. If I can't dominate them with overwhelming force, they'll beat me into the ground and run off within days of being bought. That only makes me want them more. Not only are they fierce fighters, they can hunt and feed themselves. That solves my supply problem in one stroke. The owner is completely dumbfounded. His warning has been taken as a sales pitch. There must be something wrong in this noble's head. Little does the arena owner know, I am the man with the Lord Ascension system. Years of training have pushed every one of my stats to a terrifying level. Today, I finally get to show what I'm made of. Soon I stand on the arena platform and shout down at the barbarians below. Listen up, big dumb brutes. I've just bought every last one of you from the city lord, but I doubt any of you want to be slaves for the rest of your lives. So I'm giving you a chance. Beat me in a one-on-one wrestling match and I'll set you free. But if you lose, you fight for me. No exceptions. The moment those words land, Russell shoves his way through the crowd and steps forward. Wrestling is what our people do best. You're walking straight into your own grave, little lord. Russell suddenly lunges forward and charges straight at me. He drives a brutal headbutt straight into me, then grabs me by the collar and hurls me over his shoulder with a powerful throw. After dropping me with one smooth combo, Russell claps his hands with a grin. I was curious what this little noble had. Turns out he couldn't even last 3 seconds. He turns away like a champion. The others cheer him on. Russell, you're the man. This half-brained noble had a death wish, but in the very next instant, a large hand clamps down hard around Russell's ankle. With Russell staring in disbelief, I slowly rise to my feet. I just didn't want anyone saying I was beating up a slave, so I gave you that one. You didn't actually think you won, did you? Then I drive a heavy fist straight into Russell's side. Russell is completely dumbstruck. He had used every ounce of his strength, so why does this scrawny little noble look like nothing even happened? Refusing to accept it, Russell charges at me again. But this time the outcome is completely reversed. I send Russell flying with an over-the-shoulder throw that slams him hard into the ground. Russell doesn't want to admit it, but it's undeniable. This Highland barbarian, famous for his raw power, has just been completely overpowered at his own game. At that moment, a muscle-bound barbarian woman steps out from the crowd. Let me have a go. I hope you won't back out when you lose. This woman is Gunther, the leader of the Highland barbarians. Seeing their chief step up, I know that taking her down means the rest will fall in line immediately. I accept her challenge without hesitation. In the next instant, Gunther explodes forward and rushes at me with blazing speed. I freeze for a moment, not because of her speed, impressive as it is, but because the Lord Ascension system has just flagged Gunther as a hero class unit. And in that split second of distraction, Gunther's fist comes crashing straight at my face. I just managed to raise my arm in time to block, saving my handsome face from any damage. But that one hit tells me everything. A hero class unit backed by the system. Her strength is on a completely different level from the others. Gunther doesn't give me a moment to breathe after missing the first blow. She leaps into the air and comes at me again. The force of her landing is so powerful it cracks a deep crater into the arena floor. As the crowd roars around them, Gunther casually lifts an enormous boulder, easily 1,000 pounds, and hurls it at me with terrifying speed before I can even react. I have no time to dodge. I can only watch as it comes crashing down. With a thunderous boom, the boulder slams directly into me. Gunther steps up onto the boulder with a triumphant grin, soaking in her followers' cheers. But in the very next moment, the boulder beneath her feet begins to tremble. Every Highland barbarian watching goes wide-eyed. I lift the boulder clean off the ground with one hand, cool as ever. Your speed and strength are quite good, I'll give you that, but raw force alone won't beat me me, shall we keep going? Before I even finish speaking, Gunther flickers behind me in an instant. The iron chain in her hands coils like a striking serpent and snaps tight around my throat. She yanks hard and pins me firmly to the ground. Just as Gunther thinks she has won, I tear the chain apart with a single effortless pull. Gunther stares at the broken chain in disbelief. That chain was forged by the finest dwarf craftsman from rare materials, strong enough to hold a full-grown dragon. I ignore the stunned looks all around me and study Gunther with open admiration. Strong, and she has real tactical instincts too. I'm very satisfied with this future subordinate of mine, but the fact that I've been holding back this whole time, Gunther takes it as an insult. She demands I fight her at full strength, otherwise she will never submit. I smile. First time anyone's made a demand like that, but I never turn one down. I unleash a full power straight punch and drive it straight at Gunther. Then I leap into the air and take her down with the very same moves she used on me. Gunther is beaten, completely and honestly conquered. She rises without hesitation and calls out to her people, "All barbarians, hear me. From this day on, this man is our new chief. We will follow him with our lives." Looking at my first crew in this new world, I can't help but make them a bold promise. Stick with me and work hard. I'll make sure you eat so well you beg me to stop. But my most pressing task right now is getting my crew properly armed. Gear is the fastest way to boost fighting power after all. I stride into the weapons shop and tell the owner, "Bring out your best. I want every one of my men fitted out properly." The owner immediately sizes me up, a noble with more money than brains just waiting to be emptied. He reaches over and triggers a hidden mechanism on the wall. A secret door swings open, revealing the premium stock. After learning that Highland barbarians prefer spears and javelins, I plan to equip each man with 1 spear and 3 javelins. The sharp-minded owner quotes me 750 gold coins on the spot. I hand over what little gold I have and ask if we can be friends. Maybe knock the price down a bit. The owner's expression hardens instantly. "Sorry, we don't do business with broke customers." I hold up the sword in my hand. "What if I threw in the Dragon Slayer?" The moment the owner hears that name, the color drains from his face. A noble who carries a weapon like that has to be someone powerful. He absolutely cannot afford to offend this man. He immediately declares that making friends is his greatest joy in life, and that everything I spend in his shop today can go on credit. I push my luck without missing a beat and ask him to throw in 50 sets of quality leather armor as well. Once everyone is geared up, Gunther asks what I plan to do next. I flash a sly grin. Run, obviously. That Dragon Slayer name, I made it up on the spot to fool the owner. Soon our whole crew is out beyond the city walls, standing in the open wilderness. With 50 fighters at my back, I'm a force to be reckoned with. Time to claim my own territory. But the moment we step into the wilderness, a gang of goblins and gnolls locks onto us. Seeing that our numbers are small, they nearly start fighting amongst themselves over how to divide the loot before the battle has even started. Gunther spots the tail following us. I'm not worried in the slightest. I signal the crew to halt and get ready for a fight. Then I pull a pouch of pills from my coat and have Gunther pass them around. I take the first one myself and announce, "These are the legendary pills that rapidly boost your power." Everyone clearly thinks they're fake, but no one dares question me. They swallow them in silence. And honestly, they're right. The pills are fake. They're just cover for what the system is doing. You see, once the Highland barbarians pledged loyalty to me, the Lord Ascension system registered them as members of my roster. And once they gain experience in battle and level up, their power will skyrocket. Even the densest barbarian would notice something was off. So I have to guard my secret carefully and give the system's effects a believable explanation. The bandit gang rallies and charges straight at us. The moment they enter my range, I pull out my spear with a big grin, rear back and hurl it with full force. It cuts a sharp arc through the air, flying straight and true toward the enemy leader, who takes the hit and absorbs, shielded by his heavy armor. The goblin leader feels the threat in that throw, but his forces outnumber us several times over. That crushing numerical advantage makes him dismiss us. Both sides flood onto the battlefield like a rising tide. In the melee that follows, the barbarian warriors, armored in leather, armed with spears, face off against bandits who look like they crawled out of a ditch. It's a masterclass in what gear advantage looks like. Even the boldest gnolls drop fast under the barbarian's assault, but raw strength alone can't close the gap in numbers. Soon the barbarian warriors are surrounded on all sides. Gunther starts to panic and asks what we should do. I calmly climb to the top of a wagon and ask Gunther for another spear. Turning the tide isn't hard. Give them one taste of real death, and that rabble will fall apart on their own. In the next instant, the spear blazes in my grip like lightning splitting the sky, and I drag it across the wagon top with thunderous force. The moment the spearhead scrapes the surface, it erupts in roaring flames. I launch the burning spear at full force toward one of the enemy's giant beasts. It strikes the creature square in the head and kills it instantly. The death of their strongest fighter breaks the nerve of every other monster in the bandit ranks. They scatter in every direction faster than they came. The barbarian warriors see this and surge forward with a roar, morale ignited. A lifetime of hunting has made the barbarians experts at killing. Their enemies fall one by one like helpless sheep under a butcher's blade. Watching his side on the verge of total annihilation, the goblin leader steps forward in a fury, green energy crackling across his body. I don't move. Instead, I call out to him with a smug smile. "Setting up an ambush out here? Aren't you worried a stronger faction might swoop in and take everything?" The goblin leader scoffs. "The nearest faction around here is the kobolds hiding up in Highland Fortress. Give them all the courage in the world, they'd never dare cross me." Now I laugh for real. I've been wondering where to claim my first territory. Thanks for the tip. I draw the Dragon Slayer and cut the goblin leader down where he stands. Highland Fortress sits on high ground, easy to defend, hard to assault. I expected a brutal fight. Instead, the only guards at the gate turn out to be 2 little dogs. I give my men a look, and they know exactly what to do. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fortress, the kobold chief is hunched over a table, furiously studying a foreign language. His enthusiasm is cut short the moment I kick his door in. The kobold chief's tongue flicks out as he shrieks, shrieks, "Guards, there's an intruder in my chambers." But the ones who come through the door are my own men. "Boss, the guard dogs have been taken care of." The kobold chief erupts in rage. "I have 100 clansmen nearby. Touch me and see what happens." In the next instant, I flip him upside down and hang him there. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. After a thorough session of persuasion, I have Gunther let him go, because kobolds are petty, vengeful creatures who never let a grudge go. The moment he's free, he'll run straight to his clansmen and come back for revenge. Rather than hunting them down one by one, it's easier to let them come to me. Then I can strip them all clean in one go. Buying the Highland barbarians had burned through nearly all my gold, and if I don't pull in some quick cash soon, we might not even be able to afford food. That same night, a patrol runner bursts in. "Boss, trouble. There's a force camp just outside the city. Looks like they're planning to hit us." I slam the table and jump to my feet, buzzing with excitement. "Brothers, rise and shine. Strip them clean. Leave them with nothing." I scope out the enemy force with a telescope and find they're just a band of goblins. Nothing too formidable. So I change plans on the spot. I'll take a small squad with Gunther and hit them first. One swift strike to catch them all and cement my dominance over Highland Fortress. To my surprise, the goblins are completely off guard. Every single one fast asleep in their tents. My men don't waste a gift like this. Blades rise and fall without a word. Goblins too deep in sleep to wake are cut down where they lie. The few who survive the first wave stumble out of their tents, straight into the barbarians waiting outside. Just when Rossel thinks we have it completely wrapped up, the ground beneath his feet begins to shake violently. With a deafening explosion, Rossel is launched into the air. The one behind it is a dragon bloodline goblin. This dragon bloodline goblin is even larger than a Highland barbarian, and has already grown dragon horns, a sign that its draconic bloodline is exceptionally strong. With a thunderous roar from the dragon bloodline goblin, the earth beneath seems to be torn apart by a massive force in an instant. A colossal armored pangolin bursts up from underground. The dragon bloodline goblin vaults onto its back, swings his giant axe and bellows, "Lowly outsiders, prepare to face the might of noble dragon blood." Dragon blood, my foot. Gunther has heard enough. She hurls her spear with everything she has, but there's a sharp clang, and her full force throw doesn't even scratch the armored pangolin's scales. What in the world is that thing? Gunther looks genuinely shaken, and in that brief moment of shock, the dragon bloodline goblin drives his mount forward and charges straight at Gunther. Taste the power of dragon blood. At that life or death moment, I flash in front of Gunther, grab the armored pangolin's left front claw with both arms, and hurl the whole beast into the air with nothing but raw strength. One move, and the giant creature crashes to the ground. I look down at the dragon bloodline goblin sprawled beside it, struggling to get up, and say with full swagger, "You, a filthy half-lizard, half-goblin crossbreed, dare talk to me about bloodlines? I am a descendant of the dragon. Do you even deserve to say that word?" Those words hit like a slap. The dragon bloodline goblin rages, swings his axe, and charges at me without a second thought. But against overwhelming strength, resistance is pointless. I catch the axe barehanded and end him with a single punch. With the dragon bloodline goblin down, the battle is over. The Highland barbarians eagerly fan out to loot the battlefield, but all they turn up is a small chest of silver coins, if not for the fact that Gunther leveled up twice during the fight, and managed to tame the dragon bloodline goblin's mount. This whole fight would have been a net loss. With nothing better to do, I open the system shop and browse. My near-empty wallet leaves almost no options. All I can scrape together is enough for one worn knight's lance. I tap the purchase button and a sleek knight's lance materializes right in my hands. I'm about to test its power, when I catch the faint sounds of battle, shouting and clashing steel, just barely within earshot. I pull out my telescope and scan toward the noise. Not far ahead, a merchant caravan is being attacked by gnolls. Just from the number of wagons, I can tell this caravan is carrying serious wealth. I could wait for the caravan to be wiped out, let the gnolls collect everything, then take it all from them. Clean and easy. But I'll need trade partners to grow my territory. If I save them now, they might open trade routes for me down the line. By now, the caravan's guards are completely overwhelmed. The caravan leader pleads quietly to the snarling gnolls, "Take everything we have. All our gold, all our goods. Just let us live." But the frenzied gnolls aren't listening. Just as one bares its teeth and moves in for the kill, a lance comes flying out of nowhere and punches straight through its body. The sudden turn leaves every other gnoll stunned. I chuckle from a distance, admiring my handiwork. System-crafted gear really does deliver. At the same time, Gunther leads the main Highland barbarian force in a full charge. I sit the rest of the fight out. These gnolls are just a rabble, the perfect sparring target to sharpen my crew's teamwork. My men don't disappoint. In moments, most of the gnolls are dead where they stood. A handful make a run for it, only to have the armored pangolin burst up from the ground and cut off their escape, delivering the final blow. A clean, total victory, and I didn't even have to get my hands dirty. Very satisfying. The rescued caravan members pour out their thanks. I wave it off without a second thought. "If you're really grateful, skip the words and just give me money." Just then, a woman's mocking voice drifts out from one of the wagons. "A greedy noble lord, how refreshingly honest." I look over. The woman inside is strikingly fair-skinned and delicate, and most notably, her ears are far sharper than any human's. I realize the leader of this caravan is a half-elf. Their caravan took heavy losses in the fight, so she asks if I can shelter them for a few days and let her people rest and recover in my territory. In return, her caravan will pay with weapons and gold. I agree without hesitation. Highland Fortress never turns away away a paying guest. The first thing Annie does upon reaching Highland Fortress is pull out a crystal vial and begin mixing a healing potion. I recognize it immediately, a healing potion blessed by a high-ranking wizard. Just a few drops and it matches the effect of a basic healing spell. I've wanted to stockpile these as military supplies for a long time, but the price has always put me off. This half-elf's caravan is clearly more powerful than I gave it credit for. That night, as I'm relaxing under the moonlight, Gunther comes sprinting over with an urgent look. "Boss, we've got a problem. A group of armed centaurs is charging toward us from outside the city." Outside Highland Fortress, the scene is tense and deadly still. At the front, a woman rides with cold, unwavering eyes fixed ahead. The moment they enter the perimeter, a volley of spears comes screaming at them from the walls and drives into the earth, just in front of their feet. The centaur leader understands this is the fortress lord's warning shot. Cross the line marked by those spears and there will be no more diplomacy, only war. Yet the centaur leader ignores it entirely and orders the force to keep advancing. From the battlements, I narrow my eyes. They ignored my warning. Looks like these centaurs are looking for a fight. I raise my lance and shout the order, "No holding back, show them what we're made of." But just as the spears are about to reach them, the centaur woman draws her sword and, at an almost impossible angle, cuts every single incoming spear clean in half. Then she orders the centaur force to halt. She pulls out a piece of white cloth, picks up one of the spears from the ground, and holds the white cloth high on its tip. Gunther turns to me with a puzzled frown. "Boss, are they surrendering?" The scene leaves me baffled for a good few seconds. Surrendering before the fight even starts? With their intentions unclear, I leave Gunther and the main force to hold the fortress, and take a few men to go find out what they want. The centaur woman places a hand over her chest and bows. "I am Hurt, chieftain of the Galewind clan. I come in peace." Hurt reaches into her pouch and produces a fan-shaped ox shoulder blade. I take it and examine it carefully, but I can't read a single word on it. Hurt patiently explains, "The native tribes in this region are assembling a coalition force. This is their invitation." It all clicks. Highland Fortress used to belong to the native kobolds. They must be rallying multiple tribes to take it back. Hurt confirms it and adds that the natives have a shaman fighting with them. They shouldn't be underestimated. That brings me to the question I've been sitting on. Why help me? Why not join the native side? Hurt's eyes burn with indignation. The Galewind clan are half-beast kin, driven out of our homeland by force. We would rather die than stand alongside those native bandits. Hurt places her hand over her chest again and bows. "The Galewind clan wishes to join Highland Fortress. We will raise our blades in your name, and we ask only that one day, under a powerful lord, we may restore the glory of our clan." The system shows me their join request, and I accept without hesitation. The fact that the system is even generating a request for them is proof enough they're not double-crossers. That's one of the system's hidden perks. According to their profile, centaurs are ranged fighters specializing in archery, exactly what my forces have been missing. Back at Highland Fortress, I fill Annie in on the coming war. I estimate the enemy's main force will arrive in as few as 10 days. Annie quietly lets out a breath of relief. 10 days is enough time for her reinforcements to arrive and pull out safely. Gunther, on the other hand, is practically glowing. More free weapons and supplies delivered right to our door. I'm not the least bit worried about the incoming enemy, but to cover my bases, I shamelessly turn to Annie and say, "Miss Annie, with a major threat bearing down on us, could your merchant house spare a 500 gold loan for Highland Fortress?" Annie strongly suspects she'll never see that money again, but she's under someone else's roof, so she agrees graciously and doesn't mention interest at all. The moment the loan hits my hands, I head straight to the system shop and start spending. The new centaur recruits are still poorly equipped, so I go big and buy every one of them a yew longbow from the system shop. Hurt tests the bow. The string sings as she draws, and an arrow cuts through the air with incredible speed, striking a little bee 100 meters away that was busy studying a foreign language. I'm very impressed. With proper weapons, these centaurs are a whole different threat. Just then, a runner sprints in and breaks my train of thought. "Boss, something's wrong. It looks like the caravan's reinforcements were hit." I head out immediately with a few men to check. What we find is grim. Every single member of the caravan's relief force has been brutally killed. The signs at the scene make it easy to read the native gnolls are responsible. The gnolls have clearly locked onto this caravan and won't let go. That means Highland Fortress is no longer safe for them either. I suggest Annie take the able-bodied mercenaries and travel light. Just healthy fighters and horses. With that setup, they can outrun any gnoll patrol they run into. Annie refuses flat out. "These mercenaries fought and bled to protect me. I won't abandon them." I don't push it, but given the danger of the situation, I do seize the moment and demand 2,000 gold coins as a protection fee. Annie is furious, but she has no choice. She agrees. Just then, Hurt notices something off about one of the enemy's weapons. The spear is crudely made, and the blade still has iron slag that wasn't cleaned off. I take a look and can't help speculating. Don't tell me these natives are forging their own weapons. Annie explains, "Far to the north in the wilderness, there are many large and powerful tribes. These tribes have grown so large, they function no differently from small nations. Their ability to forge weapons is no surprise at all. So the great northern tribes have joined this war too. This is shaping up to be a far bigger challenge than I expected." A scout rushes in, breathless. "Boss, they're coming. The native army is on the move. They've already camped at the foot of the mountains 50 li from the city. Barring anything unexpected, they'll reach Highland Fortress by tomorrow." A fierce surge of battle hunger rises in my chest. These natives have finally shown up. My blade has been itching for a fight. I raise my sword and give the order. Charge, twist off their skulls and use them as bowls. The Highland barbarians hear the call and surge forward, leading the charge. The newly recruited centaur warriors are still a little nervous, but they follow right behind, battle hunger blazing in their eyes. Just then, Annie rushes over with a worried look. My lord, what's the battle plan? I've studied military tactics, just say the word and I'll help. I straighten my armor and answer with a straight face. First, we rain arrows on them. Then I lead the charge. Finally, we hunt down whatever's left. Annie stares at me like she's seen a ghost. Don't mess with me, their numbers are over 10 times ours. I don't answer. My eyes lock onto the battlefield ahead. Unlike the gnolls before, who just rushed in like brawling bandits, this enemy force is actually organized by unit type. At the very front, a few werewolf cavalry scouts hold up spyglasses, surveying the field. Behind them, a line of orc infantry holds up battered shields. Ragged as they look, this is a proper army on the march. I realize this fight is no joke. I need to go all in. I take the lead, riding my giant mount Chasefang straight into the fray. But the centaurs draw first blood. Their arrows fly before I even reach the line. A storm of arrows pours down like heavy rain, reaping enemy lives without mercy. The enemy responds in kind, launching their own volley of ranged attacks. Every last one is blocked by Chasefang's massive body. Two unstoppable torrents of soldiers crash into each other. The battlefield blurs into chaos. Only the battle cries and the clash of steel ring out clearly. Then without warning, the ground beneath us begins to crack. A dragon bloodline goblin bursts up from below, ancient draconic power surging through its veins. I react instantly, spurring Chasefang into a powerful leap. Chasefang's sheer size and force scatter the enemies surrounding the dragon bloodline goblin. I seize the moment and drive my lance straight through the dragon bloodline goblin, ending it. The dragon bloodline goblin's fall ignites a roaring fire in my soldiers' hearts. Every fighter transforms into a raging tiger, charging forward with unstoppable force. But just as the enemy begins to crumble under our pressure, the kobold chief, desperate to turn the tide, calls in a mysterious shaman to deal a killing blow. The shaman is draped in worn animal hide, face hidden behind a skull mask, but the wild dance and muttered chanting make it clear dark magic is being woven. The shaman thrusts the staff skyward, and a massive fireball erupts from the fire unit nearby. Under the shaman's control, the fireball twists and reshapes midair into a blazing fire dragon. I shout a warning to my troops, but it's already too late. The fire dragon detonates at the center of the battlefield with earth-shaking force. I try to use my lance to block the blast, but the sheer power of the magic shatters it into pieces. Fortunately, I was the target, so my barbarians only take minor hits, nothing fatal. The shaman's fireball is too dangerous to ignore. I have to take that threat out, now. I make my move and call for Hurt, the centaur leader. I order her to rally every centaur and prioritize taking the shaman down with range fire. Hurt gives the command. Every centaur releases at once. Arrows streak through the air like shooting stars, all aimed straight at the shaman. But the werewolf commander sees it coming. The moment the arrows fly, the werewolf's men raise their shields and form a tight wall around the shaman. Just as the werewolf commander is congratulating himself, I lock onto him and hurl my spear with full force. The spear punches clean through his chest. The impact is tremendous. It sends the werewolf commander flying and slams right into the shaman behind him, breaking the fireball concentration. The fireball spins out of control and detonates directly over their own forces. Fire rains down like a storm, pounding the enemy ranks and triggering chaos and casualties. The sudden reversal of fortune shakes the kobold chief to the core. With nowhere else to turn, he places his last hope on the shaman. The shaman doesn't disappoint. A new spell surges out, and orc warriors who should be down for good rise back up, eyes gleaming with bloodlust, savage as wild beasts. I stare in shock. That's the Bloodlust Hex, the spell that forces the body beyond its limits. It's not a high-level spell, but the cost is brutal. Once cast, the warriors are driven into a killing frenzy, and they won't stop until their bodies give out. Fighting head-on against pain-immune killing machines is not a smart move, so I grab my weapon and charge straight at the shaman. The shaman is the key to the Bloodlust Hex. Take the shaman down, and the crisis ends. But the moment the kobold chief spots me coming, he scoops up the shaman without a word and bolts. I rip off my helmet and fling it straight at them. The shaman can't dodge in time and goes down hard. I move in to finish the job, but when the shaman turns over, I find myself staring at an underage female orc. In the end, I capture the shaman and win the battle decisively. But a number of my soldiers took serious wounds in the fight. Some are on the edge of death. Highland Fortress has no healer of any kind. So I try my luck and threaten the shaman. I'm ordering you to heal my men right now, or things are going to get very unpleasant for you. I wasn't expecting much, but the shaman's healing ability is astonishing. Under her care, soldiers who were moments away from death watch their wounds seal up at an incredible speed. A shaman who can both fight and heal. I find myself thinking she'd be a perfect addition to Highland Fortress. But first, I need to squeeze the location of the shaman's base out of her. Hurt tries every threat and scare tactic she knows, but gets absolutely nothing useful out of the girl. I grin and step forward. You're doing it wrong. Let me show you how it's done. I put on my warmest smile and ask gently, so, where is your base? The shaman bares her teeth and snarls back. I am a noble shaman of the Red Dragon bloodline. Show some respect. She doesn't even finish the sentence before I send her flying with a brutal slap. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. The noble shaman learns her lesson fast and spills every detail about their base. She even helpfully points out things I might have missed, as if she wants the job done right. She insists their base is nearly empty. All the fighters have already marched out, leaving only the elderly and young. But to be safe, I send Hurt to scout the location and confirm. To help Hurt move fast, I dump all the stat points she earned in battle straight into strength and agility. With no local threats to deal with for a while, I tear down the old Highland fortress entirely and rebuild it as a proper fortified castle. A few days later, I run into Annie, who had left the area shortly before. Turns out her merchant caravan is hauling goods to sell to the dwarves. I take a look inside the cart. It's full of coal. Apparently, ever since the dwarves discovered an ore deposit in the sacred lake last year, they've been smelting iron ore on their own, and their demand for coal has skyrocketed. Just then, Hurt comes running back, badly wounded. I assume she got hurt at the shaman's base, but Hurt tells me the shaman's base was exactly as described. Nothing but the old and young. Her injuries came from a bearfolk ambush on the way back. Lucky for them, the bearfolk were heading for the dwarves, not her, so her team managed to escape. Annie's face falls. Looks like the dwarves are out of reach. I look at her sympathetically. Since you can't make the trip, why not hand that coal over to me? Annie blinks at me. What would you even do with coal? I don't answer. I just take her straight to my private armory. Annie stares at the centaurs hammering away at metal and goes wide-eyed. My lord, have you been forging your own weapons this whole time? I smile and turn to Gunther. Is my secret weapon ready? Gunther points to something covered in a red cloth. Boss, it's built exactly to your design. Then, as Annie watches with wide eyes, I slowly lift the red cloth, but before I can even demonstrate what the cannon can do, a pack of bearfolk with a death wish decides to come for us. They ambush and wound the centaur scouts I sent out to gather intelligence. So to get payback for the centaurs, I decide to take the brand new cannon and go settle the score with the bearfolk. Annie points out that the bearfolk army is marching south. They must be after the dwarves' iron ore deposits. In this war-torn age of cold steel, whoever controls resources holds absolute power. That thought sparks a devious idea in my mind. We can throw a wrench in the gears between the bearfolk and the dwarves, play the spoiler. That way we punish the bearfolk and build a strong strategic partnership with the iron-rich dwarves in one move. That very night, our group slips quietly into position near the dwarf castle, but something doesn't add up. The bearfolk are the ones at war with the dwarves, so why are rabbitfolk the ones launching tonight's night raid? Annie explains. These rabbitfolk are bearfolk vassals. Strong clans like the bearfolk always keep weaker vassals around, for grunt work and as cannon fodder in battle. While she's still explaining, the lead rabbitfolk have already scaled the castle walls. The dwarf soldiers are fast asleep and completely unaware. The dwarves' carelessness hands the rabbitfolk a perfect opening. The rabbitfolk below see their comrades make their move and launch an all-out assault on the gates. Only now do the dwarf soldiers realize something is wrong. They scramble for their ballistae to fight back, but it's too late. The rabbitfolk army has already reached the gate. Just as the rabbitfolk leader thinks victory is in the bag, a cannonball drops from the sky and detonates right in the middle of their forces. I watch the cannon's devastating impact with pure satisfaction. With a weapon like this, who can stand against me? The rabbitfolk leader isn't the sharpest, but even he knows being attacked from two sides is a death sentence. He panics and screams for his forces to turn and fight back. Against cannon fodder rabbitfolk, my barbarian army shows overwhelming dominance. The outcome was never in doubt. The fight quickly becomes a one-sided slaughter. In moments, the entire rabbitfolk army is wiped out under the barbarians' relentless assault. Then the ground begins to shake violently. I spin around and find a massive figure looming right behind me. A roar tears through the sky. The bearfolk, who had been watching from the shadows, can no longer hold back. The moment the savage bearfolk warrior steps forward, it swings a flail straight at me. I react on pure instinct, raising my sword to block, and get sent flying by the sheer force of the impact. Searing pain floods every inch of my body, like being torn apart. This bearfolk warrior's strength is far beyond mine. At the same time, the main bearfolk force arrives on the battlefield, leading the remaining rabbitfolk in a ferocious charge against us. My centaur warriors respond immediately, drawing their longbows and unleashing a volley. The whistle of arrows fills the air, and every impact is answered by screams and cries of pain. I thought we had control of the fight, but the enemy still has massive reserves, pouring onto the battlefield in an endless stream. That's when our little shaman steps forward, a fireball already forming in her hand. Looks like I have to handle this myself. She thrusts her staff into the air, and a fireball no bigger than her palm expands rapidly until it blots out half the sky. Then it drops like a meteor, crashing down onto the enemy formation. The enemy's main force is swallowed whole in a sea of fire. But even with such a devastating display, I don't let my guard down. I know the fireball is lethal to rabbitfolk cannon fodder, but against the thick-skinned bearfolk, it can't deal real damage. So I act fast and activate the Lord Ascension system, unleashing Heaven's Edge to cleave a bearfolk clean in two. But Gunther has no system to rely on, and his luck runs out. A single swipe from a bearfolk sends him flying. Rossel, furious, hurls his axe to buy Gunther some time, but the axe barely scratches the bearfolk's hide, nowhere near the damage Rossel was counting on. The enraged bearfolk lets out a low growl and lunges again at the barely conscious Gunther. Just as Gunther is about to meet his end, a flash of brilliant sword light splits the air, and the bearfolk's head is taken off before anyone can blink. I pulled it off thanks to Big Brain, our naturally gifted hero, who had just recently learned stealth art, a skill that works not only on himself, but can be shared with allies. We don't even get a moment to celebrate, because I spot something that stops me cold. Every fallen enemy soldier is being wrapped in a swirling red mist, and in the next instant, the heavily wounded bearfolk and rabbitfolk rise rise back up, in a deeply unsettling way. The little shaman recognizes it immediately. That's the Berserk Hex. It's unique to the Minotaur shaman. I scan the area, but the Minotaur shaman is nowhere to be seen. The little shaman's expression turns grave. The Berserk Hex was cast from a distance, so the enemy is only in a half Berserk state right now. That's a relief. If it's only half Berserk, I have nothing to worry about. These battered remnants are no match for Gunther and the others. Our intervention in driving back the bearfolk earns us an enthusiastic welcome from the dwarves. Just as I head back to my room for a well-earned rest, the dwarf castle shakes violently without any warning. I rush to the window and see bearfolk warriors returning, this time with the Minotaur shaman in tow. Our easy victory over the bearfolk earlier has given the not-so-bright dwarves a dangerous overconfidence. The dwarf chief waves his hand and declares with full confidence, "You don't need to step in. Let us show you what dwarf warriors are made of." The dwarves sound the charge, and their army rushes out in a blaze of misplaced confidence. But that recklessness lands them in deep trouble. Against the far stronger bearfolk, the dwarves are hopelessly outmatched and can't hold the line. The dwarf chief panics completely. He orders the ballistae to fire, trying to support his struggling forces. The ballistae score some hits and take down a few bearfolk, but the casualties send the Minotaur shaman at the back into a fury. The Minotaur shaman's eyes flood with red, radiating a murderous, unhinged rage. The dwarf chief's face goes pale. It's over. The Minotaur shaman has gone full berserk. Even Gunther, who always trusts me without question, can't help asking, "Boss, the Berserk Hex has pushed the Minotaur shaman to the absolute limit. Is there any way we can still win?" I don't have time to answer. Instead, I snap, "Where is our shaman?" Turns out the little shaman bolted the moment she saw the Minotaur shaman and got caught red-handed by a Highland barbarian. I grab her by the collar, exasperated. "The enemy is right in front of us and you tried to run? You've disgraced Highland Fortress. The Minotaur shaman has the Berserk Hex. So what? You have the Bloodlust Hex. What is there to be scared of?" The dwarf chief's fists clench with sudden excitement. The Bloodlust Hex is every bit as powerful as the Berserk Hex. If the little shaman can pull it off, there might still be a chance. But my next words leave both the little shaman and the dwarf chief frozen in stunned silence for a solid 2.5 seconds. I point forward with a cool, confident gesture and order the little shaman, "Cast the Bloodlust Hex on their Minotaur shaman now." The little shaman thinks I've lost my mind. Casting a power-boosting Bloodlust Hex on an already berserk Minotaur shaman, wouldn't that just make the enemy even stronger? But she doesn't dare defy me. With trembling hands, she raises her staff and begins the incantation. In an instant, the Minotaur shaman under the Bloodlust Hex transforms into an overwhelming, rampaging war god. Veins bulge across its body like tree roots, surging power threatening to burst through the skin at any moment. The dwarves can no longer contain their terror. They drop their weapons and flee in every direction. Convinced we're finished, the little shaman scrambles to follow the fleeing dwarves, but I yank her back before she gets 2 steps. "Stop panicking, open your eyes and watch." The Minotaur shaman's muscles have swollen to a grotesque size, but its body is completely rigid, no longer responding to its own will. The larger the body, the greater the strain on the heart. The Berserk Hex and the Bloodlust Hex are both powerful boosts, but stacked together, they push the heart far beyond its limits. Once that burden crosses the threshold the Minotaur shaman's body can bear, the collapse will be instant. And then, as everyone watches in disbelief, the Minotaur shaman's chest bursts open in a torrent of blood. It staggers and crashes to the ground, utterly silent. The bearfolk and the Minotaur shaman were among the most feared powers in the wilds. Their back-to-back defeats in a single day sends a message to every other predator out there. But as long as the iron ore stays in dwarf hands, these wild powers will keep coming. So I propose a clever play to the dwarf chief. Seed Lake Bae, give up the iron ore location. Let the wild clans tear each other apart fighting over it, then we sweep back in. But the dwarf chief rejects my plan without a moment's hesitation, because beneath Lake Bae lies something far more important than iron ore. Something the dwarves must protect. Soon the dwarf chief leads me down to the bottom of Lake Bae. We squeeze through a gap barely wide enough for one person, and what I see on the other side stops me cold. Deep in the underwater passage, a titan is hidden, bound in heavy chains, and as we draw near, its eyes begin to glow with a deep red light. We surface and return to shore. The dwarf chief explains with unmistakable pride, "We fight to protect this titan because it is no ordinary titan. It is the ancestor of the dwarf people." I stare at him blankly. How does a giant titan produce descendants this short? Darwin is rolling in his grave. The dwarf chief sees my skepticism and dives straight back into Lake Bae without a word. In an instant, the clear water glows with an eerie red light. He surfaces and continues. "This is the titan's soul force. It responds to those who carry its bloodline." That only raises another question. If this titan is so important, why not just dig it out and take it with you? The dwarf chief scratches his head helplessly. "We tried that before, but the more iron ore they mined, the dimmer the titan's red glow became. They eventually discovered that the magnetite in the surrounding iron ore forms a special magnetic field, one that locks the titan's core soul force within its eyes. You can't guard this titan forever," I say. I understand their sense of duty, but I have to ask. The dwarf chief answers quickly. According to their ancient texts, the titan's soul force can be passed on. On the night of a full moon, the soul force reaches its absolute peak. The next full moon is 2 days away. We will hold this place no matter what until then. A greedy thought flickers through my mind, but I shake it off and smile wryly. "Aren't you afraid I might want it for myself, telling me all this?" The dwarf chief meets my gaze without blinking. "This soul force may be the last glory of our titan ancestor. We fear losing it to the wrong hands, but we fear even more that no one succeeds at all, leaving it sealed forever in this dark, forgotten place. We agreed long ago go. If none of our warriors can inherit it, we ask you to try. I'm skeptical of this whole inheriting power idea, especially after watching the dwarf chief flail around in what was apparently a ritual to ward off bad luck. I suddenly feel like dragging myself out here in the middle of the night was a complete waste of time, but the little shaman pushes back with a stubborn look. The mind-poor secret art of our shamans can pass a lifetime of knowledge from one generation to the next. That makes me even more doubtful. If the shamans really had a technique that powerful, they wouldn't be looked down on by every mage out there. An elder dwarf blows the horn with full force, and the 5 chosen dwarf heirs line up before a ring of fire near the Titan's remains. One by one, they step into the fire ring and kneel on one knee, hand over heart calling to the Titan through the power of their bloodline with total reverence. I lean over and whisper to the little shaman, "Is there any danger here?" The little shaman grins. If a dwarf's small body can't contain the Titan's soul force, their body might just explode on the spot. I quietly take a few steps back without making a scene. As it turns out, my concern was completely unnecessary. The dwarf heirs cycle through like a revolving door, one after another, but the Titan's remains show absolutely no response. Not even a flicker. The dwarf chief falls apart. He crumples to the ground and breaks into tears, every trace of authority gone. Clutching his last shred of hope, he looks up at me. "My lord of Highland Fortress, would you try?" I almost say no, but every dwarf in the room is looking at me like I'm their last hope. I go through the motions. I'm a pure-blooded human with no dragon blood whatsoever. Zero connection to any Titan. If the dwarves couldn't do it, I certainly can't. I step into the fire ring and strike a casual version of the summoning pose. The next instant, the fire ring beneath me erupts in blinding light. And for the first time tonight, the Titan's remains open their eyes. Those eyes blaze with scorching red light, radiating a terrifying, soul-shaking presence. Then everyone clearly hears a sharp crack like shattering crystal, as if something terrible is about to tear its way out from the Titan's eyes. I shout a warning. "Everyone back! This thing looks like it's about to blow." But the dwarves don't move. They stare at the Titan with crazed, unblinking eyes, as if spellbound. Fortunately, the Titan's eyes don't actually explode. After the cracking sound fades, they slowly go still. That's when we notice it. A large hole has opened in the Titan's eye, and a strange little creature is crawling out from inside. I'm completely stunned. Darwin is really rolling in his grave now. Somehow, across all that time chained beneath the lake, the Titan managed to produce this tiny little creature. But strange looking as it is, it sends the dwarves into an absolute frenzy. They swarm beneath the Titan's remains, terrified their tiny ancestor creature might fall. But the little rascal has no interest in staying still. It leaps and scrambles all over the Titan's remains. Finally, it launches itself into a jump and lands lightly on the big guy's finger. To the dwarves, this creature is a sacred treasure. They're terrified of it getting hurt. But I'm not about to coddle anything. I reach out and grab it. I notice a thin membrane stretching between its forearms and sides. That must be how it glides. The dwarves crowd around, eyes gleaming with curiosity and longing. "Let me touch it!" Right then, the little creature in my hands lets out a cry of pain. I sense immediately that something is wrong. I toss it back to the dwarves like a hot potato, and the next moment, a thunderous boom goes off. The dwarves are all blasted into the most fashionable hairstyle around right now, the explosion look. I'm convinced now, this little thing is the Titan's own, having inherited the Titan's thunder magic. Just then, the dwarf chief cries out and points at the Titan's remains. Everyone look! Everyone turns and watches as the Titan's remains crumble apart, piece by piece, unstoppably. The dwarves are overcome with grief. Some can't hold back their tears, but they also know the Titan has fulfilled its final purpose. It can finally rest. Early the next morning, we set out on the road back to Highland Fortress, but Annie is not happy about it. "Why are we leaving so soon? We should have locked in a deal with the dwarves first. We're their saviors right now. Everything is on the table. Wait too long and they might forget what we did for them." I cradle the little creature calmly. "Don't worry about it. As long as this little one stays with me, every word I say is law to the dwarves." The dwarves had planned to raise it themselves, but the moment it was away from me, it became completely listless, sulking and refusing to eat. The dwarves had no choice but to hand it over to me. Because the little creature kept crying Chichu, Chichu, I named it Chichu. And so, after a few leisurely days on the road, our group makes it back to Highland Fortress safe and sound. Annie parts ways with us, taking her caravan with her, but promises to return with more people as soon as she can. For a rare stretch of time after that, yours truly actually gets to enjoy a peaceful, easy life. By the time Annie rolls back into Highland Fortress with her caravan, over 10 days have already passed. But the changes at Highland Fortress leave Annie wide-eyed, and she fires question after question at me. Why are the dwarves from the dwarf clan happily working as my personal blacksmiths? And why, when this lord simply sits out in the sun, do rabbit folk and goat folk maidens stand beside me fanning away? I awkwardly adjust my sunglasses. The dwarf clan lost nearly all their warriors. They had nowhere to go. Coming here to make a living, that's perfectly reasonable, isn't it? As for these girls with nowhere to turn, they lost their tribes to the chaos of war and came to Highland Fortress on their own. I just want to give each of them a home. Is that a crime? Annie doesn't believe a single word of my straight-faced nonsense, of course, but that's not why she came to Highland Fortress this time. She's brought me a renowned naturalist. The visitor politely removes their hat, and I'm stunned to discover that this white tiger beast folk named Buckland is, in fact, a woman. My nickname is Tang, so you may call me Tang Baihu, my lord. I'm here hoping to conduct some research on the wilderness from Highland Fortress. Buckland finishes her introduction and blinks with a perfectly innocent look. She can't figure out why this lord is suddenly fighting back a laugh. Is the name Tang Baihu really that funny? Just then, a rabbit folk sentry arrives and breaks the awkward moment. Apparently, a few lizard folk have shown up outside the walls, asking to meet the lord of Highland Fortress. I pull out my telescope and take a look. These so-called lizard folk are just a bunch of scrawny little runts who look like they couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. I wave my hand with a look of pure disdain. Turn them away. I'm not seeing anyone. But Tong Baihu stops me. These aren't ordinary lizard folk. They're Scar lizard folk. Their destination is likely Pompeii, to pledge allegiance to His Majesty Sadri. They've stopped here first to get acquainted with Pompeii's nobility, so they don't embarrass themselves when they arrive. I stare blankly. Doesn't His Majesty just collect powerful races? What interest could he possibly have in a bunch of lizard folk who look this helpless? Annie shoots me a look and sighs. Don't underestimate them. The Scar have another name, dragon tamers. My jaw dropped so far you could fit a whole watermelon in my mouth. Hold on, don't get too excited. Annie seems to know exactly how misleading that sounds. They don't tame actual dragons. They tame a creature called the landworm, native to the Scar steppe. I pat my chest and take a breath to calm down. Why didn't you lead with that? Turns out it's just a knockoff. Then I ask casually, so how big is this Scar landworm anyway? Buckland deliberately adjusts her glasses, a teasing smile creeping onto her face. Oh, just a touch smaller than your iron-eating armadillo mount, naturally hooved feet, built for charging. Before Buckland even finishes her sentence, I crush my tin telescope into a twisted wreck with sheer excitement. Move it, roll out the red carpet and bring them into Highland Fortress. Now, when followers come knocking on your door, yours truly makes sure they never want to leave. But Buckland thinks I'm out of my mind. Given the choice between pledging to a king and following an unproven frontier lord like me, why would anyone pick me? What happens next makes Buckland's jaw hit the floor. In mere moments, the Scar are beaming as they shake my hand. It doesn't feel like I'm the one doing the recruiting. It feels like they showed up begging to join and are just lucky I said yes. On top of that, the Scar leader gives me the most sycophantic grin and says he'll head back immediately to bring every last member of his clan. How did you do that? What did you say to them? Buckland knows it's a bit rude to ask, but she simply can't help herself. I flash a smug grin. Simple. My aura alone shook them to their knees. They couldn't resist my overwhelming presence. Buckland has built up full immunity to my straight-faced nonsense by now. She's not buying a word of it. The real reason I won over the Scar lizard folk so fast, the Lord Ascension system has a special elixir that boosts combat strength. I promised every one of them a dose if they signed on with me. The moment they heard the deal, they didn't hesitate for a second. With the Scar deal locked in, I drag over a stool and settle into a card game with Big Dumb and Little Dumb. Before long, I notice the cup of water on the table starting to tremble. Chi-Chu thinks it's an earthquake and curls up into a ball like a frightened hedgehog, but I leap to my feet with a huge grin. I know exactly what this means. My ultimate overlord landworm core has arrived. I knew they were coming. But when I actually see the Scar landworms thundering toward Highland Fortress with that raw, unstoppable dominance, I finally understand what it truly means to be born heavy cavalry. Annie watches and sighs. What a shame the Scar riders are so frail. Stronger knights would make all the difference. I scoff at her amateur thinking. Heavy cavalry lives and dies by impact force. A rider's horsemanship matters far more than their combat skill. Swap in a different rider and you lose that deep bond, the kind that only comes from shared blood. With this heavy cavalry joining the ranks, Highland Fortress's forces swell overnight. The Highland barbarians are the largest group, nearly 200 strong. Next are the Scar riders, around 80. Still double the centaurs, who number fewer than 40. Add in Xiao Bai and the spellcasting duo of Big Dumb and Little Dumb, and my total force is top 300. In a pinch, Highland Fortress can also call up an equal number of werewolf and dwarf militia, decent fighters in a grind. So right now, I'm the most dominant force in this entire region around Highland Fortress. Recruiting more followers is starting to feel pointless. So I shift my focus to powering up personally. No matter how strong your crew is, nothing beats being strong yourself. The sharp-minded Buckland recommends I train in the Holy Word Prayer Art. I turn it down without a second thought. The Holy Word Prayer Art is just some outdated garbage that does nothing but boost raw strength. Besides, my single punch output already exceeds 2 tons of force. There's no point wasting time on it. Insanely overpowered battle aura and magic. Now that's what interests me. But Buckland tells me no art is inherently superior or inferior, only suited or unsuited to its practitioner. And in her view, the Holy Word Prayer Art is exactly what I should be training right now, because its strength boost is percentage-based. I nearly flip the table in excitement. Isn't this the legendary effect? The strong get stronger, the weak fall further behind? Buckland then pulls a yellowed, worn parchment booklet from her coat and says, I happen to have the first stage training manual for the Holy Word Prayer Art. I'd like to offer it to you, my lord. I only ask one small favor in return. Appoint me as Highland Fortress's civil administrator. I agree on the spot without hesitation, because I know full well that Highland Fortress has no real governance to speak of. The way things are managed right now, it's barely a step above running a protection racket. My crew can fight like demons, every last one of them. But the moment you hand them a pen and ask them to tally livestock taxes, don't even bother. So having a learned, capable person step up and take charge of internal affairs is nothing but good news for everyone. That night, I return to my room alone and dive into the Holy Word Prayer Art. After skimming through the parchment booklet, I find that the Holy Word Prayer Art cultivates radiance. Its ranks, from lowest to highest, are 5 stages: Dawn, Essence, Moonlight, Radiant Sun, and Revelation. Even at the lowest Dawn stage, you get 30 minutes per day to activate Radiant Surge, boosting your strength by 50%. With each stage up, both the duration and the boost multiplier double, all the way to 8 hours at 8 times strength at the Revelation stage. That's all I need to hear. I start training immediately, and what do I find? Yours truly is an absolute genius. Most people need months just to grasp the basics. I nail it in minutes. I'm ready to push straight through to the Dawn stage in one go, but grinding hard is not a skill a genius like me should need. So I flop onto the bed and, out of habit, glance at the system panel before sleeping. That one glance blasts away every trace of drowsiness. I bolt upright, because right there in the Lord Ascension system panel panel, the Holy Word Prayer Art has a proficiency entry, and that proficiency can be upgraded with skill points. I stare at my 57 hard-saved free points. The urge I've been holding back for so long is now completely impossible to contain. I make up my mind in an instant, raise one finger with full commitment, and slam it down on the plus button next to Holy Word Prayer Art, again and again. The next moment, it feels like a miniature sun has been stuffed inside my chest, radiating light and heat in every direction. I know exactly what this is, a radiant seed, and the formation of the first radiant seed means I've already crossed the threshold into the dawn stage. The next morning, I drag a chair to the most crowded open area in the fortress and put on my best air of mysterious depth, waiting for someone to look at me with awe and amazement and say, "My lord, you're incredible. You advanced in a single night?" But not one of these blockheads at Highland Fortress has the faintest clue. They all greet me respectfully enough, but not a single compliment lands where it counts. Fortunately, the dwarf clan chief walks over just in time to save me from the awkwardness. "My lord, what should we do with those bronze weapons in the storehouse?" Apparently, we've been picking up a handful of ancient weapons here and there from our battles against the wilderness tribes. I figure the bronze weapons are old enough to be antiques, so I tell the dwarf chief to store them somewhere safe. We'll sell them for a good price later. I expected maybe a few dozen bronze weapons at most. What I find makes my jaw hit the floor. The bronze weapons we've collected have piled up into an actual mountain. The sheer scale of it sets off alarm bells in my head. Sure, wilderness tribes occasionally get lucky and dig up a bronze weapon or two, but this much luck? Something is very wrong. Buckland licks one of the bronze swords and confirms this weapon came from an ancient tomb or armory. The moment I hear Buckland's analysis, I can't contain myself. I burst out laughing. "We're rich!" I immediately call for Xiao Bai. When it comes to knowledge of the wilderness, nobody in all of Highland Fortress knows it better than this homegrown shaman. Xiao Bai tells me these things have been circulating from the wilderness tribes to the east. Bronze is cheaper than iron weapons, so plenty of clans buy from them. I look at her, and the irritation just builds. She knew all along, and said nothing. Xiao Bai feels completely wronged. Our own weapons are 100 times better than this junk. Why does the Lord even care about the scrap metal? I look at Xiao Bai, pure, blissfully clueless from head to toe, and tell myself, she just doesn't know better. I can't blame her. I pat Xiao Bai on the shoulder with a smile. "I'm now officially assigning you a critical mission on behalf of the organization. I'll give you 10 warriors. Go find out exactly where all of this is coming from." And so Xiao Bai sets off with 10 bodyguards to track down the source of the bronze. Fortunately, after Highland Fortress's string of brutal victories, the stories told by the defeated have grown wilder with every retelling. The fortress is now known as the Crimson Demon Fortress, a name that makes warriors tremble. The moment Xiao Bai steps outside the walls, her status skyrockets. Chiefs who once looked down their noses at her are suddenly falling over themselves to curry favor. On top of that, the bronze weapons have always been traded openly. No one ever tried to hide the trail. A few quick questions and Xiao Bai locates the source relic site. The moment I get word, I gather my crew and head out to excavate whatever bronze remains are left. After a week's work, I haul every last piece of bronze from that relic site back to the fortress. I also notice the murals inside the ruins are stunning, so I leave a few rabbit folk behind with orders to carefully chisel them free. What I don't know is that I'm not the only one with eyes on that relic site. Hendra, Legion commander of the Roaring Brown Bear Legion of the Kingdom of Stuart, has taken a keen interest in that bronze cache as well. You see, Hendra is a grandson of one of Stuart's marshals. After training alongside his brothers in the Royal Guard, he was shipped off to a god-forsaken border post and handed command of the Roaring Brown Bear Legion. The title of Legion commander sounds impressive, but anyone in the know can see right through it. The Kingdom of Stuart follows a strict and unbreakable convention for naming its legions. Their top-tier elite legions carry names like Stormraj or Earthsunder, forces of nature. Second-line standard legions take the names of powerful magical beasts, bloodthirsty black dragon, raging fireline, that sort of thing. Only the worst third-line garrison legions get named after common animals: brown bear, wild boar. So from the day Hendra accepted command of the Roaring Brown Bear Legion, he knew his family had written him off. But Hendra is not the kind of man who gives up easily. He drills his soldiers relentlessly, waiting for the day war breaks out so he can lead his men to glory. It's a viable plan. In this age of chaos, war can erupt at any moment, but the plan requires serious funding. So when Hendra stumbled upon the location of the bronze relic site, he marched his forces straight there. What he finds leaves him furious. The ruins hold nothing but a few rabbit folk chiseling at murals, not a single bronze weapon in sight. In a blind rage, Hendra slaughters every rabbit folk on the spot. When Hendra learns that a minor frontier lord like me had already taken the bronze, he makes a rash decision on the spot. Before anyone else finds out, he will strike Highland Fortress with overwhelming speed and wipe it off the map. What none of them could have imagined is that the entire thing was witnessed by a rabbit folk who had slipped away to relieve himself. The critical intelligence reaches Highland Fortress in no time. The moment I hear a full legion is marching on us, my heart sinks. If tens of thousands show up, we're done for. But the well-traveled Buckland tells me not to worry. In Stuart, anything named Brown Bear is a third-line garrison unit at best, no more than 3,000 men. Still, her reassurance doesn't fully ease my mind. Numbers are one thing. What really matters is whether they have high-level mages. We do have 3 mages on our side, but 2 complete fools and 1 barely functional. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. Annie assures me I'm worrying over nothing. His Majesty Balloony of the Kingdom of Stuart is deeply suspicious by nature. To prevent rebellion shortly after taking the throne, he centralized control over all military mages under the crown. Only warriors are assigned to the armies, so a third-line garrison like the Roaring Brown Bear Legion will have 0 mages attached. I jump to my feet with a surge of excitement. No mages? Then I'm going to make sure the Roaring Brown Bear Legion comes in and never goes back out. Buckland stares completely baffled. What on earth gives this reckless lord such confidence? As the newly appointed civil administrator, she knows the numbers cold. Highland Fortress can field fewer than 600 fighters, barely 1/5 of the enemy's strength. Yet this reckless lord looks completely at ease, and has already started discussing with Annie how to cash in on the spoils of war. First thing the next morning, I begin preparing for the battle ahead. To throw the enemy off, I have a decoy lord's hall constructed by the river, and just beyond the decoy hall, I have Big Dumb and Little Dumb use magic to grow a thick patch of 3-meter tall gravegrass in advance. On the 20th day, our Centaur patrol encounters the enemy's advanced scouts outside the walls. But no matter how skilled those scouts ride, they can't match the Centaur's innate racial advantage. In a single exchange, the enemy scouts take arrows to the chest and drop. With his scouts gone, Hendra is left completely blind to our terrain and formations. So when Hendra spots the tall gravegrass, he doesn't give it a second thought. Eager to end this quickly, he finishes forming up his troops and orders the charge without a moment's hesitation. I bend into a wild battle pose and roar, "Brothers, get in there and tear them apart!" The Highland barbarians, towering far above any normal man, come charging in like unleashed tigers. Hendra's gut drops. His infantry have no chance against Highland barbarians. To prevent a collapse, Hendra plays his trump card, ordering his cavalry to charge immediately. In his mind, yes, the Highland barbarians have an overwhelming edge in direct combat, but if his cavalry slams straight into the Highland barbarian formation, the sheer devastating force of the charge will solve everything. But just as his cavalry is about to reach the battlefield, the gravegrass erupts. In one instant, dozens of enormous landworms burst out in a perfect formation. Every single one is fitted with full enclosure, specialized armor, protecting the Scar Riders completely, while letting them wield their lances from a stable, well-shielded position. My ultimate Overlord Landworm Corps delivers a live demonstration of what truly unmatched impact force looks like. In a single charge, everything standing in their path is sent flying or crushed underfoot. And the ones lucky enough to survive, they have it even worse, because my ragtag trio of mages has now entered the battle. Xiao Bai isn't exactly the sharpest, but the fireball she throws land right on top of the already crumbling enemy legion with devastating effect. Hendra's face twists with fury. He turns and strokes his griffin's head, his voice cold and sharp. "My darling, go kill those 3 mages." The griffin explodes into action, hurtling straight toward the mage trio. Xiao Bai sees it coming and panics. She slaps Big Dumb on the head, screaming at the top of her lungs, "Run, run!" But Big Dumb and Little Dumb think she's just playing around. They both grin like idiots and don't move an inch. Meanwhile, the griffin closes to magic range, puffs out its chest, opens its hooked beak, and blasts out a torrent of red flame. In that desperate moment, Xiao Bai completes a spell incantation at the fastest speed of her life. She launches a fireball with thunderous force. Fireball meets flame torrent in midair, and the collision erupts in a massive, deafening explosion. In the moment everyone's attention is pulled to the blast, Hendra bursts forward, his entire body blazing with silver-white battle aura. He swings his sword straight at me with savage force. I drop into a backbend and barely dodge the sneak attack. I glance behind me. The ground where I'd been standing has been carved into a deep crater. Then Hendra smirks with full arrogance. "I, Hendra Gunawin, do not cut down the nameless. Tell me who you are." I spit on the ground with pure contempt. "Dead men don't deserve to know my name. Anyone who dares invade this lord's Highland fortress without cause will be shown no mercy." My arrogance sends Hendra into a rage. He raises his sword and charges at me again. I parry upward and knock his weapon aside with ease. Then, in rapid succession, an overhead slash, a diagonal sweep, and a horizontal cut. 3 strikes. My 3-hit killing combo. But Hendra's battle aura has real force dispersion properties. He actually withstands all 3 heavy blows, just when he's clearly running on empty. Hendra flashes a strange smile. His personal guards have already raised their blades and lunge at me from behind, at full speed. What Hendra doesn't know is that he's not the only one who's been holding something back. The next instant, I activate the holy word prayer art, freshly mastered. With radiant surge blazing through me, I swing with everything I have. All 3 attackers are cut clean in 2. Defeat after defeat twists Hendra's face into a mask of burning rage and wounded pride. He throws out everything, every last drop of battle aura, and charges for one final, all-or-nothing clash. But how could Hendra, at this point, possibly match me with my strength doubled? I plant one clean kick straight into his face, and this tedious battle comes to an end.